Welcome to Yvonne from Alexander Probin, who is going to join us today to talk about the bits of information that we do know about with regards to the current situation that we all find ourselves in COVID-19. We are in this brave new world. There are lots of things that are changing, lots of different things happening. So I wanted to bring in a business specialist like Yvonne, who is an accountant, who can give us the snapshot of where we're at in this minute, but also Yvonne is the person, is my accountant, is many of my clients' accountant, and is the person, and her firm is the people we will need when we start coming out the other side of this. Yvonne, tell us a little bit about you and what you specialise in.
Yeah, I'm Yvonne Crank, so I own a business in Northwich, an accountancy and taxation practice in Northwich, specialising in a whole range of businesses from small self-employed clients to small to medium-sized businesses, sort of less than 250 employees, and also then separately from that, personal tax clients that are more high net worth individuals. So a whole range of clients. We've been here for about 12 years now. Good practice, never really have to advertise, keep getting clients from referral. Very dedicated to giving our clients, as you can see from today, we're here. Thankfully, we're able to come to the office because we're dedicated payroll providers. So we're part of the key workers that are allowed to be in work. And I'm really glad we are in work because the volume of calls that we've been getting from clients who are obviously going through a really stressful situation. And so to be able to be here and support them as much as we can, I'm really grateful for.
And we're grateful for you too, and it's in this busy time, it's a privilege to have you jump in today to help as many people as you can. So I've got a first question for you, Yvonne, is what is the overall message you want to give people who are business owners in today's current climate?
I think the number one message is it is going to be a difficult time, but do not bury your head in the sand. Yeah. It's important for lots of reasons. The phases that we're going to go through now over the next couple of months in terms of, do we need finance for the bank? We've got this scheme which is very generous and brilliant of the government, this possible 80% return on the salary for employees. But you've got to know that your business has some cash flow to be able to support you until these reliefs and grants and benefits come into play. So it's very important to speak with your accountant now, look at your cash position at the moment. If you do need to go to see the banks, for example, even though these grants are immediate and they're all regarded as emergency grants, when you're going to see your bank about them, you're still going to have to provide a pack of information. They are still sitting with you and looking through things as they would, to some degree, more of a fast track process, but as they would if you were going to get a loan off them. So you've got to have your pack of information together just in case you need to go for one of those loans. But aside from that, speak with your accountant, pull together the pack of information that you're going to need if you do need to get a loan. But apart from that, sit down and look at obviously I can't say income because there's not going to be a lot of income coming through for a lot of people, but look at your overheads, decide what you can dispense with, legally, and, do it in a sort of considerate manner. Get in touch with people that you're due to pay money to when you can't perhaps afford to pay them at the present time. So definitely look at your cash flow, get your pack ready if you do need to see the bank, and don't bury your head in the sand at all. Deal with things head on.
Yeah, I think that pack is really important, isn't it, Yvonne? And just being able to have somebody like you that can literally help you go, this is where everything is, pull this here, pull this here, pull this here. That can bring, and I know from my own personal mind, I mean, we were on the phone only about 10 days ago and I was telling you data back from 2013, and that's not because I'm like an 8th grade student or anything. I think it gives me so much comfort knowing that I can pick those stats up at any time of the year, but now that we've got to be able to put those packs together to present, this is our current position in our business. Definitely. I've just got an additional question, Yvonne, about the grants, these 80% grants. What do we know about them? What do they look like? And, are we paying interest on them? Are we having to pay them back? What do we know at the moment?
So it's the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, to give it its full title. And what it is, it's for employers of any size, so whether you're a limited company, whether you're a self-employed person that has people on the payroll. What the government, the aim of it is that obviously when this has started to hit home, people were thinking, I'm going to have to lay staff off. And so what the government have said is, don't lay your staff off. We will guarantee to pay at least 80% of the salary for the employees that are on your payroll, and the benchmark date that they're using is the 28th of February 2020.
Yeah.
So if you had people on your payroll at that time, they could, as long as you retain them as employees, what you're doing is you're furloughing them. So you're saying to them, and I'll just talk a bit more about that in terms of the legal side of things. You're saying to them, the business doesn't need you to work at the moment, but God willing, when we get through this, we will want you back on board as the company starts to trade again. So we're sort of asking them to stay at home, not work at all, but remain on the payroll. The company will still process their payroll as normal, but the government have guaranteed that they will backdate it to the 1st of March, but they will give the company back 80% of all the eligible employees' pay.
Right.
So what's going to happen is the government are going to be setting up a portal. It's not going to be online, they don't think, until the end of April. You've got to remember that this is a completely new system that's being rushed in.
Yeah.
That's probably going to have to serve every business in the United Kingdom. So, the fact that they're aiming to get it in by April is absolutely incredible. So until then, we process pay as normal. You've got to decide whether you're going to pay you have the option as the employer. You can pay your employees 100% of their wages. The 80 will come back to you from the government and you pay the 20. Or you can say to your employees, we can't afford to pay you 100%, we can only pay you the 80 that we know the government is going to reimburse back to us. So at the moment, the furlough process, you do have to write to all of your employees because it is a change in their contract of employment. So for example, if you're saying we can't afford to pay you 100%, only 80%, then it's actually a reduction in pay for them. Yeah. So you've got to notify them when they're being furloughed from. You've got to tell them whether you're going to be paying them 80% or 100% of their normal pay. You've got to tell them when the furlough review process will be dealt with, and I'm advising people to tie that in to when the government's agreed to underwrite this for 3 months. So really to June.
Yeah.
So to give them a date then, and then so we'll carry on with payroll, but towards the end of this month there'll be this separate portal where we'll register all the employees that have been furloughed, and then the aim being that the Inland Revenue will feed that cash back to the employer, who in some cases might have already paid the salary. Yeah. So the Revenue are hoping to have the refund situation in place by the end of April, but it could roll, it might be late, but with the best will in the world, it's a lot for them to deal with. So it might roll into May. However, pay has to be processed as normal. So when I was saying earlier about get your packs ready, it might be that in order to pay your staff, when there's no absolute guarantee that the refunds are going to start coming in at the end of April, you might need some short-term finance if you haven't got the cash available. Yeah. So, sorry.
And I think, no, that's brilliant, because I think, what, that really insightful piece that you've pulled out together there, Yvonne, I think it's not just only helpful for the business owner, but I think it's really helpful for the employees to understand, it's not just like somebody's just going to send that chunk of money tomorrow and that 80%. I think it's so helpful for us to all understand the complexity and the moving parts that are included all in this, because I think the more knowledge and communication information we have, the more we can find a little bit of knocking down that anxiety, that unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt that the refunds will come through. Yeah. If you think it from the employer's perspective, I just think from my clients, a lot of them are finding the money through putting their own money in the business. Yeah. Make sure the staff get paid, because they are confident that the revenue will reimburse the 80%. But unfortunately, it might roll over a little bit past the end of April, whereas people will have to be paid at the end of April on the normal monthly pay run. Yeah. So, you know, have funds in place, because it will come back. There's no doubt that the revenue will refund this money.
Yeah, wonderful. So if you're a business owner that owns your own property, is there anything that you can be doing in addition, you know, in terms of your business premises? Is there anything that you should be doing in addition to the bit that you've just talked about?
In terms of actually owning your own property, there's nothing within the registration that really impacts on that. I mean, we've got the rates release, which we'll go on to in a minute. But in terms of so some businesses, we might have some business owners who own a property that they allow their limited companies to trade from. Or we might have some self-employed people that have commercial premises that they like their business to trade from. Sometimes because there has to be commerciality between the individual who owns the property and the actual business, there'll be a rent in place, a formal lease in place. But like with any lease, like with your landlord, where you can request some kind of reduction in rent or a rent holiday, then obviously if you own the property and you own the business, you don't have to pay that rent. You can sort of freeze that rent to help your own business. Yeah. I mean, in terms of tax planning, in some situations, it's not always advisable because of the personal tax rates compared with the corporate tax rates to actually pay yourself a rent for using your property in the business. But for those who have a formal leasing in place, you can, as you would with a third-party landlord, agree to freeze that rent while you're going through this difficult time.
So while we're just on the subject of landlords, what conversations should business owners be having with their landlords right now?
Again, don't bury your head in the sand. Have those talks now. You want to be proactive. None of us, if we're not going to get paid, we don't want to wait till we're chasing the client to get paid to find out. No, we would prefer that the clients, all of us are far more amenable when somebody comes to you first, rather than just doesn't pay you. So if you've already looked at your cash flow and you know that over the next few months paying your rent is going to be extremely difficult, speak with your accountant and decide what you can afford, or and get hold of the phone and speak with your landlord. A lot of landlords charge rent 3 monthly in advance, quarterly in advance. So some people might be getting rent bills now for the next quarter. Absolutely nothing wrong as far as I'm concerned in terms of approaching your landlord and saying, look, it's normally quarterly in advance, but can I pay it you monthly in advance, assuming you can afford to pay it? If you can't afford to pay it, then negotiating some kind of rent freeze or a rent reduction in line with what your cash flow you feel you can pay, realistically pay and keep to.
Yeah, and then so thinking about properties, what about the rent, the rate rebates?
Right, the rate rebates. I'll just have to look at some notes just to.
Oh, I love this, Yvonne. With more detail and notes.
Right. So, for the businesses in retail, hospitality and leisure industry, they're getting a 12-month rates holiday over the 2021 year. So obviously a lot of people would have already paid their first month's rates. Yeah. They are going to be refunded, and the councils have confirmed that the rest of the direct debits will be frozen. There'll be no rates taken for businesses in those industries over the 2021 year. Obviously, when I'm talking today, I'm based in England, and I'm talking about what's been said in terms of England, businesses in England. I'd imagine there'd be slight tweaks perhaps with Wales and Scotland. So if you're based in Wales or Scotland, do check on your local authority's website to find out. But in terms of businesses based in England in that sector, they're getting a rates holiday. You don't have to apply to the council to formalise agreement about the rates holiday, it will just happen. Then these cash grants. So the things I'm going to talk about just now are all things that are going to be administered by the local authority. So the other thing, it's not so your local councils will be dealing with this. So we've got cash grants as well. If your rateable value is under 15,000 and you're in the business, retail, hospitality and leisure industry, then you should receive a cash grant of £10,000. Now, a grant, normally, there's different types of grants, but these types of grants aren't repayable, but they come into your accounts, and whether you're a self-employed person or a corporate person, you will either pay income tax or corporation tax on them. So they come in as income in your accounts, but they're not, you don't have to pay them back. So I'm assuming that the grants that I'm talking about now will be of that nature. Taxable in your accounts, but you don't have to pay the money back to the council.
And that can be a massively helpful bit of cash.
Massively helpful. I think the way they've determined a lot of these grants is looking, because they've linked it to rateable value, they're looking at it in terms of trying to estimate what people might be paying in rent to a landlord. And so they're trying to gear the amount of the grant to that rent exposure in the hope that the grant carries them through for the next few months. If your rateable value is between 15,000 and 51,000, you'll receive a cash grant of £25,000. So the another sort of another business area outside of retail, hospitality and leisure that will get the grants, potentially is the nursery schools. They're going to get a business rates holiday for a year. The criteria for that is that they're occupied by Ofsted Early Years Register and the providers of early years foundation stage education.
Fantastic, Yvonne. That is so important.
Then thirdly, which is another really good one for a lot of small businesses that are operating in a commercial premises or office. So this one now doesn't appear to be related purely to the retail, hospitality or leisure industry. What they're saying is if you have a business that's in any kind of premises that receives an invoice for business rates but gets small business rates relief, either fully or partially, then you are going to, or rural rates relief as well, you're going to get a one-off grant of £10,000. So, for example, if you're a florist, for example, in a small shop, whereby you would get a business rates bill, so it comes through every year, it says that your rates would normally be £2,993, but then underneath it, it says small business rates relief 100%, brings the bill down to zero. Those people that get that kind of a bill will be getting a £10,000 grant. Again, it's administered by the council. You don't have to apply. I have actually advised my clients just to send an email to their local council just so they're on it. I don't know whether it'll make any difference, but we've tried ringing on the phone. That obviously we're not getting through. It's a difficult time, but send the email and you know you've got something on your system to show that you did apply for, did make reference to them about it. But what's meant to happen is that they're meant to get in touch with you. There'll be a form to fill in to give you bank details, and then the amount should be paid into your bank account. In terms of when you're getting these grants, the aim from the government is that the money will be made available to the local councils by the beginning of April. So you should start to hear from your council early April. And if not, definitely send that email. You can find the email address for the council generically on obviously the council's website and put something in writing.
Fantastic, Yvonne. So now we've got VAT bills due in the next 3 months.
Right. So what's happening with VAT? Is that every business is getting 1 quarter when it can delay the payment of its VAT. So what the government has said, that if you are due to pay VAT between the 20th of March 2020 and the 30th of June 2020, you can delay payment of that VAT until the 5th of April 2021.
But you still have to pay it though. That's the key thing.
You still have to pay it, and you still have to do the return and get the return in on time, preferably. But so do your return. It's not the case you don't have to do a return, because the government need to know who owes them money. So the compliance process continues, But so, for example, someone we're just heading towards the end of March, so clients that would do a VAT return to the 31st of March with VAT payable by the 7th of May, now do not need to pay that VAT on the 7th of May. They can defer it until the 5th of April. And it rolls forward. So literally everyone who's a VAT registered business will have 1 quarter when they can delay their VAT. There's no penalties or interest for delaying it. The only cautionary note I'd make is that some people pay their VAT by direct debit. So we're dealing with a crisis situation. It's all been rushed through. I did a VAT return the other day, and it's what happens is you do the return when you're on a direct debit. You get an email saying, thank you for your VAT return, we'll be collecting your direct debit on. Because it's also rushed through, there is a danger that the revenue system might go to collect that direct debit. So I've advised all my clients to cancel the VAT direct debit. Now we're in the period where that VAT can be delayed, just to avoid an awful situation whereby the direct debit is taken in every by the revenue. You've then got to try and get hold of them to get your money back. Just cancel the direct debit and then set it up again when we've got through this 3-month period.
Brilliant advice, Yvonne. Now, some tax payments are going to be due for some people, for some self-employed. So what is the current messaging around what we should be thinking about with those tax payments?
Right, for self-employed people, the next time that they're due to pay tax is the 31st of July 2020.
Yeah.
So the government has said that tax payment can be delayed. Again, you don't need to get approval to delay it. That can be delayed until the 31st of January 2021 without interest or penalties. So sadly, for the self-employed, that is all we have confirmed in terms of a relief at the moment.
Yeah.
So although the employees of limited companies and small businesses are going to get 80% of their salary, provided their employer will agree to furlough them, unfortunately for the self-employed, we still don't know. Apparently, the Chancellor feels that dealing with how to recompense a self-employed person is very difficult, bearing in mind we're just nearing the end of the 1920 tax year. So the last information the government will have on a self-employed person was their personal tax return to 5th of April 19. And I think it's because of that, I think there's a reluctance to do something which might be based on tax returns that are already quite in the past.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're looking out for all the time, because obviously our self-assessment clients, self-employed clients, are very anxious, and so hopefully he will come through with something in the next few days for them.
Yeah. And so what things could they be doing while we wait for this announcement, if there is going to be an announcement?
Again,
applying for universal credit, but would you recommend that they get the universal credit application in just to be in the mix?
They would have to know that they aren't going to earn, if they've already decided that their income has completely dried up.
Yes.
So in that situation, absolutely, get in touch with the organisations and apply for the various credits. It's a difficult one because some people will still have levels of income coming through, because although a lot of people are home-based, they are still working. They might still be able to generate fee income. So when you're going for these credits, you've sort of got to explain what your anticipated levels of income are, and if they're not extinguished completely, then it's a difficult one. But where you can, or where you might decide, actually I'm not going to trade because there's no guarantees, I'm delaying myself in terms of any release through the universal credits, etc. So they're going to just close the door on the business temporarily in order to move forward with some support from the various government reliefs.
And I think that's the one that we're really hanging out, because you and I both have in our business, self-employed, self-assessment people. And that's the chunk of information that we're all really hanging out for, just to be able to guide people and give them a little bit of reassurance in these current times.
Absolutely.
Yvonne, what are the key questions we should be asking our accountants right now?
Well, if you are a business that employs people, you must be in touch with your accountant about this furlough process, trying to keep the employees attached to the business, but keep making sure that they do get this 80% through you, but refunded by the government. And that's going to be really, once this portal is up and live, and we're going to have to enter all the employees' details on, we need to be ready to go with that straight away, because we don't want any delays in our businesses being refunded this money. So speak to your accountant now. For example, next week we'll be speaking to all our businesses that employ people, have a payroll with us, a pay-as-you-earn scheme, finding out, right, which staff are you retaining and continuing to pay in full yourself, which staff are you furloughing, getting all the information on on the employees that they intend to furlough, so that when this portal comes live, with no delay in terms of putting the information in, and getting the money back. And part of that will be looking at, right, some people are straightforward, they're on 25,000 a year, so it's easy to work out what their normal pay is. Some people who do 0 hours contracts, for example, there's going to be more work needed. So definitely you should be speaking to your accountant now, working with him or her to get this information all cleared off, ready to be input.
And one final question, Yvonne. If you are sort of a limited company and there's just you on the payroll,
yes, freelance.
What does that look like?
How awful is the honest answer. I mean, that is the thing I'm getting most calls about. The freelancer situation, people who have their own personal service companies, they at the moment are almost parked with the self-employed people, right, with no clear answer in terms of how the government intend to help them. From my perspective, as a company director of a trading company, and my other clients that have trading companies, they're saying, right, that's great, we know our workers are going to be looked after because they will get this 80% salary, but what about me? I literally am closing the business in terms of not doing any trading over this period, perhaps, because a lot of furloughing all the employees and almost putting the business into hibernation. But the government hasn't absolutely clarified that the directors who might be on the payroll will definitely also be able to furlough themselves. It's a technical argument because a company has to have a director to exist. Yeah. And, the company it isn't dormant, it's an unusual situation. So I'm literally trawling through, speaking to the Institute of Directors, speaking to various organisations, and this answer still hasn't materialised. Yeah. So sadly for you and I, possibly very little help at all.
Well, we're used to it. We use it, and I think one of the things that I have been saying, that it's going to be the other women leaders that are still working and doing things and having conversations and making sure we're staying connected with our clients, are literally taking everybody by the hand, and we're going to lead everybody out of this, Yvonne. I believe in us.
And especially the owner manager who has been tax efficient and has been on a low salary and dividends. It might be that in this situation that might work against them, because because we're on the payroll, if it is the case that we are allowed to be furloughed, because we've only been on perhaps 12,500 a year, we're going to be getting 80% of that. So I don't think there'll be any recompense for the share side of the dividend side of things, because I think for the period that the government are looking in terms of a time scale initially, which is a 3-month period, I think it would just be far too difficult to come up with a solution. So we're really going to have to
knuckle down,
pull our belts in.
Pull our belts in. I was just making one of my clients laugh on the messenger, because we were talking about Snackgate, because everybody's snacking because they're at home. Or I'm wearing my jeans. My jeans are going to help monitor this Snackgate situation. No sweatpants in this house. So
we should be taking every day. Anything to help us get through it.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to make sure that we get across is that, you know, we are all looking, saying, you know, the next 12 weeks, we've got to keep communicating with our clients and our accountants. Yeah. And I believe more than ever, you and your organisation are going to be the people that we need more than ever, because there's going to be a bit of complexity that comes out of this. So managing our cash flows, when our payments are due. So, you know, the fact that we're going to have, you know, tax due here, VAT bills due there, and managing that cash flow. And I think you and your organisation are this guiding light that we all need in this moment, Yvonne. So thank you.
Oh, very welcome. No, but we're happy to serve, and, you know, just to get the feedback from the clients, the fact that we're here and at the end of the phone and supporting them, they've been so grateful. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
I would just want to wrap up with saying thank you in this like busy time. I know you're coming to this crazy point in payroll for you to give us some of your time today, and
no problem.
Break it all down for people, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee, the self-employed, freelancers, owner directors. I think just having a little slice of clarity, and one of the things that you and I did say is, you know, this landscape is moving and switching and changing
really
all
fast
the time. So I think the information is current as what we've got a snapshot of today, and we don't know what's going to happen in the coming weeks.
No, not at all. But yeah, absolutely. You know, it's not selling accountants. I just think you are going to need your accountant to get through this minefield at the moment.
Yeah, I think we always need. Well, you know, I'm like, go and speak to Yvonne. Go and speak to Yvonne. I'm very puritanical about, you know, that I'm very puritanical about money, about cash flow, about how we manage money. I do not get it right all the time, and that's not what we're saying. That's, you know, this is a very different time. But one thing I know is that people like you can really help us shape our businesses when we come out the other end of this. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, and you stay safe, and I'll speak to you again.
Speak to you soon.